first known rules of golf were drawn up in 1744 by the Gentlemen Golfers of Edinburgh in Leith, Scotland. Since then, the game has changed dramatically. Golf courses, equipment, and not least the rules. So where do I go when I want to learn about the rules of the game today? Well, I go to the Golf Rules Questions podcast with Blakey and Rossco, of course. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Golf Rules Questions podcast. Well, hello everybody and welcome back to this week's episode of the Golf Rules Questions podcast, the podcast where you get your regular dose of golf rules information, knowledge and inspiration. And that's what we are here to do. We are here to inspire you all, golfers of the world, to keep playing golf. And when you are playing golf, follow the rules, because without rules, Blakey, there is
chaos.
Yes, and welcome back to you, Blakey. It's your podcast, so welcome back to your own podcast. I always feel funny welcoming you to your podcast, but as I say, I just sit here pressing the buttons. Another episode, another week, another set of rules, scenarios, and situations to unpack and uncover. But firstly, we have the rundown of this week's episode. So as per normal, we will cover last week's golf rules question of the week. We have some information related to Adam Scott playing out of the water. We want to unpack a little bit more around that Victor Hovland scenario. There are a couple of situations that have occurred in the WGC at hand as almost live. We're sort of reporting live on those rule scenarios, Blakey, you could say. And then just a bit of housekeeping, background bingos, Ivers. I think you've created another Ivers situation for yourself. And then this week's Golf Rules question of the week. So let's crack on, David. What do you say?
Yeah, you're going to read the question for the Golf Rules question of the week 33.
Absolutely. Great work on the little videos too, putting a little bit of comedic humor in there. And I enjoy posting those because I always get a few nice little chuckles and comments and people looking at the Zoom recording of us trying to be silly, just trying to have some fun. That's what I pointed out. I think what was the word? The word of the week. There's almost created a new segment. Word of the week. What was it? Trickerage. Every time I look at that little clip, I get a little chuckle to myself. Of course, I'm going to chuckle. Hope you did too. Trickerage is not actually a word, I don't believe. So last week's golf rules question of the week. Fraser's ball comes to rest on a gravel path in a yellow penalty area. There are some loose stones around his ball. Is Fraser able to get relief from the stones? It's a very good question, and I'm sure that this is a type of scenario that potentially happens fairly regularly, depending on where you play and depending on the situations you face at your golf course. Blakey, what's the answer?
This is a common one, so probably good that I asked this question. There is no free relief for interference with an immovable obstruction when your ball is in a penalty area. Doesn't matter which color it is, red or yellow. When your ball or when you have interference with an immovable obstruction, abnormal course condition inside a penalty area, there is no free relief. Now, I should say, if your ball is outside the penalty area, in the general area, and you're standing on a path that's in the penalty area, then yes, you get free relief. But it's when your ball is in the penalty area and you have interference that you wouldn't get free relief. However, the loose stones, Rossco, are of the gravel path. So the gravel path is artificial. That's why it's an immovable obstruction. But the loose stones are loose impediments. And the player is permitted to move those loose stones, but be careful not to cause your ball to move because they are loose impediments. And of course, you can ground your club, and it's in the penalty area, it doesn't matter. You can still move loose impediments.
All part of that change of the rules situation brought about by when was that now? It seems to be a while ago now because we didn't play golf for last year. But when was it? When were those changes brought in?
1 January 2019.
So the big one there is that you can move loose impediments in the penalty area, correct?
Yes, you can move loose impediments in the penalty area. That is basically what the question was.
Yeah. And ground your club. Also, if you're in a little penalty area there, you can ground your club and do all that sort of stuff there now, which is very good. And we're back playing by those situations. And if you're in a part of the world that isn't playing golf at the moment, but soon to be, I think the friends and colleagues in the UK, I think there's maybe been a recent announcement that when they're going back to play golf. Some changes up in Scotland. America seems to be still playing golf, and I don't think they ever stopped playing golf over there. But certainly our UK friends and followers, when you get back on the golf course, just embrace it, absorb it, appreciate it, respect it, because it's a great feeling when you've missed something. It's a great feeling to get back out there and start doing it. So we've got a little video from what tournament was this? Was this the not the WGC? Was it the Honda?
Yeah, the Honda Classic, which a lot of people seemed. It's quite interesting. This course, the water must be quite a low-lying water around the edge, so there's no like deep drop-offs. So you find that the water level sort of goes up and down a small smidgen, but it means that the ball can actually come to rest in the penalty area, and you still possibly will have a shot at it, meaning that the ball doesn't fully submerge. And many times over the years, we've seen players get into the penalty area with or without clothes, basically.
All right. Well, one of these situations that we want to highlight is involving our very own and very much loved Adam Scott, 2013 Masters winners. He'll be going back to the Masters very shortly, which we're all excited to see the Masters back in its regular time frame of 2 weeks now in April. So let's play that. I apologize. I hope I get this audio good. I'm without the full studio. I'm on the move today. I'm at work, so I've got the mobile podcast studio handy. So I'm just going to try and download this audio and play it as we go.
Early on a Thursday morning and the shoes are coming off. I'm here for it, Adam. I'm here for it.
Look around before you dip in there, though.
Well, one of my favorite shows is Swamp People, so.
I just, you just kind of always wonder when you're in or you get ready to attempt this shot. One, is the ball visible? Is it above the water? And, can I get it out? And so I don't have to go to either back across it. But there's the lie. And I mean, he's going to play it like a bunker shot. And yes, with all that around the golf ball, look like a couple of cable wires there. So he'll be able to move that. But this is going to be a serious splash of muck.
Okay. And what happened after that, Blakey? Was it a serious splash of muck? And what they're saying there, and I was going to interject there before when you were describing very aptly the low-lying water of that part of the world where I think it's in Florida where the Honda is. They were saying beware of the gators. So you've seen there's a few people. One of the players went and slapped a gator on the tail and shoot it off the fairway and back into the water. A few gators around that part, but that's what they were referring to there. So what happened with Adam there, mate?
So you can watch the whole clip over on my YouTube, of course. That was just part of the clip where they talk the most. Now, Adam saw that his ball was in this low-lying area and most of it was above water, so he thought he'd give it a go. Took the shoes and socks off, rolled up the pants, put on his wet weather jacket, which is probably the way that we like the golfers to go about this. Another golfer took the pants off, took the shoes and socks off, obviously took the pants off, and actually tied up his shirt into what can only be described as a bikini type model situation. So we weren't so enthused by that look, but both were trying to play it from the penalty area. The other thing that sort of happened in this situation, one of the commentators mentioned it, Adam's ball was actually right beside TV cables, and TV cables are movable obstructions. So Adam gets to move that. He did place a tee down in case the ball moved, but the ball didn't move. And so he was able to move those TV cables without moving his ball. It wouldn't have been a penalty if he caused his ball to move, since they were movable obstructions. There were loose impediment. I think there was a loose impediment around his ball, and he moved that. That's a different situation, in that if he'd caused his ball to move in that one, he would have incurred a penalty and had to replace the ball. But anyway, didn't cause the ball to move. Played it from the penalty area. It was a bit of a splash. Didn't get too dirty. Got it on the green and actually holed about a 8-footer for par.
Okay, so
Worth it.
Fairly worth it, and a great outcome. I'll just want to get this out of the way here.
It is, the footage is hard to see whether the ball actually crossed the penalty area or hit the bank and sort of rolled down without crossing. So it would have been interesting to see if he did take a drop, where his drop would have been. It would have been potentially, if it had crossed and it's red, it would have been on the steep bank within 2 club lengths. Or if it hadn't crossed, him pretty much would have had to go back to like a 9-iron distance where it last crossed. So yeah, definitely worth it to make the stroke from within the penalty area.
The part that I was interested there is that the decorum of young Adam Scott, one of the best dressed players in the game over the history of the game, choosing to don the wet weather gear rather than to do as you described some other players, take the pants off, take the socks off, roll it up into a crop top type scenario. And you mentioned there that we don't like that. So I'm assuming that you're referring to we officials, who are, charged with some of the responsibility of the ongoings on course when you are officiating and refereeing. So is that a fact that you would prefer the players to maintain some level of appropriate dress when they are donning the water sort of scenario?
When I said we don't like it, I was probably more talking about the audience, about the fans.
Oh, right.
Only because, there were a few comments about that when I posted it on the socials, saying, "Oh, thank goodness Adam didn't take all his clothes off." The golfer's body can be quite muscular, but usually very white.
Right. Well, I am in that brigade. I think last time I played in shorts in the summer, I'm actually got to have a personal challenge. I think I might next summer, going for the 4th year of not playing golf in shorts, and subsequent to that being with my Celtic origins, as you know, and as I proudly represent my Celtic forebears. The legs, although muscular, especially in the calf area, Blakey, are more akin to looking like an out-of-bounds peg. And I've been chided for that fact. So fair enough. I keep them covered.
No, there are some players that, on the smaller PGA Tour of Australasia, are permitted to wear shorts. It can be a health and safety reason when it's 38, 39, 40 degrees. That doesn't mean that it actually looks good.
Well,
but
and I'm just going
safety.
I'm just going to say safety, be sun smart wherever you are in the world. Sun cancer, skin cancer is a real thing, especially down here in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia, in New Zealand, South Africa, where the sun shines very, very harshly and the UV factor is always high, whether it's summer or winter. But it is a thing in the Northern Hemisphere, in the US and in the UK. Be sun smart, people. Now, we talk about officials. The Victor Hovland video is probably, in the shortest space of time, been one of the most watched videos on the Growing Golf Rules Questions YouTube site. Subscribe, like, share, comment on all of that. It's just growing by the day at a rapid rate of knots, and congratulations to you, and thank you to everyone who has listened and then gone on to subscribe. Appreciate that. What is it? And the Victor Hovland scenario was around the banter or the byplay between the official, and the official copped a bit of heat, obviously, because I think he got it blamed for getting it wrong. But what happens? You wanted to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I wanted to delve into this episode as being about the official and just sort of put it out there what an official does. I mean, personally, we call them officials, but I don't really like that term. I call them referees, or what you'll just call, the rules person, the person who advises on the rules, because that's what we do. We advise on the rules. You have a committee. A committee is the one that runs the tournament. Okay, they're the ones that make the local rules, make the terms of the competition, code of conduct. Then and the committee could be a group or it could be one person. I mean, Rossco, you could be running the My Love of Golf club champs type thing, and you have 10 people.
Now there's an idea. Let's write that down in the the golf rules questions. My Love of Golf inaugural championships. I like it.
I just throwing it a real quick well done out there. I did see you won the franchise of the year for Big Swing Golf, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Thank you very much.
Now, going back to the officials, so there's the committee. Now, the committee can have referees that help them, so they're out on the golf course, and those referees, funnily enough, can actually be part of the committee or just referees. There's just referees, not part of the committee, meaning that any situation, judgment that they make doesn't actually hold water by the committee. Now, that's an interesting one. It would be preferable if you have, qualified referees to be part of the committee and make a ruling straight away on the spot. But if a referee has a radio, they should always try and use it. If they are, less than 100% certain about the ruling, it would be preferable that you use the radio rather than use a book. Hey, I'm just going to check this with someone. Yep, blah, blah, blah. Rather than getting out the book and going, oh, I think it's rule 11 or rule 8? Ball in motion, but then it might have come to rest. That just doesn't instill too much confidence with the player who's waiting for this ruling. So it's easier just to get on the radio. Now, if you don't have a radio, the alternative is to get them to play 2 balls in stroke play, and they play one from the original position, and they play one from where they believe it may have, moved from or taking relief, whether it's free or penalty relief. That's always another option that the committee or the referee can get the player to do. But just talking about a referee, there's hardly any thanks, pat on the back at the end of the tournament. I mean, maybe the winner will come and say thanks. The winner says thanks to everyone, basically. Winners are grinners. But yeah, the committee, the rules referee can be out there just to advise players, just to monitor pace of play. I mean, 90% of job on the tour is monitoring pace of play. Preferably, we'd just like to sit back, watch good golf, but some players are inconsiderate of others and want to take their time. So, have you had many instances with referees, Rossco, or been in a tournament and you've seen a referee and gone, that's how did he do it? Why did he do it that way? Or what's he doing sitting over there under a tree?
No, not really, mate. My tournament experience is limited to playing in a Pro-Am of the Australian Open and the Vic Open, which is where I met you, attending the Australian Open in 1988 at Royal Sydney, won by Mark Calcavecchia. I was just awestruck by all the golfers around me as a young fella back then. And did I mention the 2016 Open Championship at Royal Troon? At any stage of those tournaments, I was too enamored by the people around me, the surroundings, the golf, to really get involved with the real scenarios. The thing that I remember at Raw Troon was Kevin Na being very, what I would consider rude and brash with one of the, just not an official, but with a volunteer who was on a tee, and I'd been watching that hole for a number of hours, and the volunteer had maintained the same position and made the same hand gestures for every group, but Kevin Na came by and was just very abrupt and short, and what I would have considered rude to the man who was giving up his time, but nothing really else, mate. Nothing really else. And only that time in Pennant, Mornington Peninsula District, Pennant, the final against Flinders, where I had to call in get my caddy to call in the official because the player was playing slow, and I think he was doing that on purpose to try and wind me up, and it just backfired because we both got put on the clock, and then I felt that I created the situation. I was under them pressure and ultimately ended up getting beat.
Yeah, it's not an easy situation, certainly for slow play. The amount of times I've talked to players to tell them that they're playing slow, and they say, "Oh, we were just searching for a ball," or we were just waiting on the group in front. You hear them all, and you just try and play a straight bat and go, "Yep, okay, no worries." Even though you've been watching them for 2 holes, and you know exactly that they took at least a minute on 3 of their shots, at least a minute. And you're just looking at them going, "Mate, I'm not here because you're playing fast."
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason that you're a hole out, and it's you. I'm speaking directly to you. Just take a hint and play faster.
The only hint that all these players that do play slow, and in fairness, in defence to Kevin Na, he would have been in that category a number of years ago, horrendously slow. The pace car, JB Holmes, is another one who's horrendously slow, and made a name for himself even more so at the Open at Portrush a couple of years ago. Kevin Na has redeemed himself a little bit. I think he's acknowledged it, and he's tried to pick up the pace of play. But what I was going to say, the only inference that people need to take at the moment is young Matt Jones, who had a win at the Honda last week. There's so many videos circulating from watching his routine. When he steps into the ball, it's just walk up, bang, shoot, go. Let's move on. Maybe there's something in that, and especially if you tune into the Mental Mastery Golf Podcast, Australia's great mental golf performance podcast, hosted by Jamie Glazier. Might have to listen to me a little bit more. You can learn about that sort of stuff, where the mind plays in that whole sort of scenario. But anyway, move on.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that you should play faster. If you're standing over the ball or you're thinking about it too much, it can only be providing worse results. But you bring up a good point about Kevin Na. Most of the time, if you're talking to a player about slow play, they're not going to be in a great frame of mind, or in a situation where they've hit their ball and they require a referee. Usually they've hit a terrible shot, or 50% of the time they've hit a terrible shot. And they may be trying to argue the point of trying to get some free relief. They might be trying to game the referee. As a referee, you've just got to take your time, listen to the player, possibly get information from other players, from caddies, from spectators if they're around. You really got to go off the facts. You can't just go specifically from what the player says or what one person says. You really got to find out as much information as you can to make the call. And so this is what happened with the Victor Hovland situation, is the player called the referee in, and nothing on Victor Hovland, because it really wasn't him that called the referee in. He was happy with the decision that he'd made, but then his marker, or another player in the group, Patrick Cantlay, wasn't happy. And so the referee's coming in there thinking, well, why did they call me in? They must have called me in because they don't have at least 95% virtual certainty that this is where it crossed. That's what the referee is thinking. because why else would he come in? You know, if the players had 100% virtual certainty, then why would the referee need to be there? So he's coming in thinking, well, they don't have that. Okay, so we'll need to get some footage. We get some footage. Unfortunately, he got a bit of a bum stare by the person watching the TV and saying that it hadn't crossed when it was pretty clear that it had. You know, it was 6 inches from the bunker. And so then he's saying, okay, that's in what's the word? Inconsequential. No, that's not very clear. And so he said, okay, Victor, you got to go back. Like your definite last point was there. That's just a possible, but it's not able to be confirmed. So, and then Victor's like, well, no, we had the virtual certainty. We'd already dropped the ball. And the referee's like, well, no, yeah, why'd you call me in? Anyway, they got further evidence and it all worked out okay. But it wasn't really the referee but a lot of the comments were saying, oh, that referee's blind. It's just unfortunate for him, but you've got to take it on the chin as a referee that most of the time you're just going to be in a situation where you're not a hero. You're delivering bad news and you've got to try and deal with it as best you can and just provide the player with the information that you have.
Make a decision, crack on, and move on is what I would say. But any arbiter of decision making, mediator of decision making, has to deal exactly as you said. Deal with the facts, deal with the situation, adjudicate and officiate, and make a decision. The decision's final, and move on.
I mean, it's really important that you know the rules as a referee. Yep, but that's not the most important thing. Actually, the most important thing is that player management, that you're able to have a conversation with the player in a clear, concise and friendly manner, but also be confident, because you'll see that there will be referees out there that will try and there will be players out there that will try and game you, and you need to understand which direction they're trying to get to. If you're called into a situation, usually the player is usually like 50%, they're trying to get free relief. So you already know that. Otherwise, they would just have talked to the marker and the marker would have said, yep, and they both agree and bang, done. 30% of the time, they might be just wanting to know their penalty relief options. And then 20% of the time, it might be something really strange. Like they'll call you up and it'll be just coming off the tee and you're like, oh, I can't think of any rules situations. And they go, oh, there's no bananas in the tee. Or we're out of Gatorade or Powerade. Can you get some more? Or another one that we get is, oh, I was in the bunker on the last green and on the last hole and it hadn't been raked properly. Can you find out who didn't rake it properly and find them? So then we have to go through the groups ahead and find out who was in the bunker and work out who was in the bunker and who didn't rake the bunker properly. And a lot of the time that can be because of a guest caddy or, we're going to places where raking bunkers isn't a profession. So people don't quite know how to do it properly. But that can be a very big concern for a player, that they've ended up in a, and I'm not talking about being in a footprint. I'm talking about being in a deep furrow of a rake.
Yeah, well, I can empathise with the player there, because it's their livelihood, it's money. Every shot is dollar signs that every shot you don't make are dollar signs that are not going into your bank account. So you would want to have that behaviour corrected. So I think they're within their rights to point out to someone, whether it's you guys or some level of official or officiating person at the tournament, to get that behaviour checked straight away. What I find amusing is, and it relates to a personal situation, is when they ask you, can you get some more bananas or waters in the on the tee box, mate? Like fair crack. And I remember I talked about tournament participation, or when went to the President's Cup last year, as you did, because you officiated there. And I was trying to get somewhere, and I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know where to cross and all that sort of thing. And probably one of the most senior officials, a big Scotsman on the European tour or whatever the tour, came hurtling down in one of those roofless buggies. I should have known that he was driving a roofless buggy, that he was fairly senior and very official. And I asked him for directions, and he just looked at me, shook his head, and said, "Mate, you're going to have to find one of those guys down there. They'll tell you, but I've got to go and I've got to go by." And I thought, oh, fair enough. I probably asked the wrong bloke. Sort of like asking you to get bananas, mate.
Whereabouts was that, Ross?
That was at the President's Cup, a little tournament we hosted here at Royal Melbourne a couple of years ago now. Yeah.
A Scottish referee.
Well, I'm assuming he was a referee because he had a radio. He was Scottish, might have been from the RNA, who knows? And he was driving. I'm only making this judgment that he was driving a roofless buggy, and you
buggy. You reckon he was a big guy too?
Pretty sure he's big, but it was a while ago now. But yeah,
I mean, JP, he's English, so it wouldn't have been him. And David Rickman was there, but he's not a big guy. I can't think of anyone that was Scottish. That
it might have been David Rickman if he's not that big a guy, but it was anyway. He was driving a roofless buggy. He was official.
Definitely would have been. And did he have a tie on?
No, he was dressed in sort of out and about gear. Maybe he was from the European Tour media coverage or something. But I asked the wrong question to the wrong person, clearly.
Because the PGA Tour, they still wear ties.
No, he didn't have a tie on. No, he was more out there on the ground and had a radio on.
And that's sort of that whole, well, they're official because they've got a shirt and tie on. They're official.
Right.
Personally, I don't mind the shirt, the button shirt, but the tie goes a little bit far for my generation, I think.
Yeah, you young ones, you got to respect the tie. No one wears a tie anymore anyway, even at work and offices.
That's right.
I chucked all my ties out. I chucked them all out recently. I had a clear out.
It's more about being not official, but more about being, friendly. You're there to help the player. You get paid by the players, basically. So you're there to help the players. You've got to. Now, when I say help the player, that doesn't mean give someone free relief when they don't deserve it. Because what you've got to remember is you're helping all the players.
Yeah.
So you've got to help the other players. You don't want that player that you give free relief that he shouldn't have got, or she shouldn't have got free relief. Then they make the cut and then someone else doesn't make the cut. You haven't helped that other person, have you? So You've got to think about everyone. And that's why it's easy just to go by the rules and just stay within the rules and help help all the competitors.
Yeah. Now, Blakey, let's keep moving on. So we've got background bingo, we've got an Ivor, and we've got this week's question to cover off, and then that should wrap it up for the week, yeah?
Yeah, well, last week your background bingo was the dunes, Barnbougle dunes, hole 17.
I think it was the whole 17. There was many photos that I drew from very quickly as I set up the background bingo, and I'm pretty sure it was the 17th hole at Barnbougle dunes. It was clearly Barnbougle as I gave away, but I'm pretty sure it's the 17th hole there. Whatever hole it was, it's all fantastic, and I've actually got a little bit of holiday golf trip. I don't know what the right way to describe it, but I'm homesick for Barnbougle dunes.
Envy? Or...
No, not envy. No, I just like you when you come back from a holiday and you had a really good time and you want to do it and you don't want it to stop. That's sort of how I'm feeling. Yeah, sometimes you come home from a holiday and you're very happy to get home, and you almost need a holiday from the holiday. No, I just want to go back there and play more golf there. But I took a lot of photos and I might use some more in the future. But I think that was the 17th at Barnbougle dunes.
And Andrew Miller got that one, and my one was a bit of a gag because it was a traveling irrigator. But obviously the Ivor this week is that my internet cut out and I wasn't able to finish the show with you last week. So I was really appreciative that you threw me under the bus with that one, but you actually got the question, and I was really, really happy that you kept going and soldiered on. So thank you so much for that.
Well, Blakey, the show always must go on. And when you dropped out there, you froze first, then dropped out and then disappeared. There was only a decision like you are when you are officiating. There was a decision that had to be made on the spot, and then there was one right decision to make, and that was to continue. And I hope I did the podcast justice in continuing, Blakey. But I may have had a little laugh at your background bingo and call it an irrigator, and wasn't quite sure what was going on there. But anyway, it was a gag. It was clearly irrigator. Or a sprinkler, as we tend to refer to them.
That definitely. See, this is the
that was an irrigator.
That was
okay,
definitely not a sprinkler. It was
a traveling irrigator. Anyway,
traveling irrigator.
That was the Ivor and the background bingo for last week. This week, Rossco.
Yeah, well, I'm sticking with the island theme. That's the only theme that I'll get, but it's pretty easy. It's a no-brainer.
This one looks amazing. Like this is in the top 10 already in the world, I think.
Don't give too much away for the people that do want to tune in and play, but the only hint is it's the island theme of golf continues. So that narrows it down to a handful of destinations. It's an island golf destination. There we go.
The funny thing is you've gone southern hemisphere and I've got northern hemisphere. So this is pretty famous hole up in the north.
Okay, looks good.
So I reckon I'm not going to give too many hints. This should be pretty gettable, this one.
Now, one thing that you did bring up recently was about product and equipment, and just talking about that. And we've had some discussions around if there is a spot in all of the content that you produce for equipment. I've got an idea, Blakey. I've got an idea for a on course. So my thoughts are if there is any equipment discussion related, that should always be revolved around or the rules of golf, or the focus should be the rules. And we're talking about that if we get the opportunity to do filming on course. But I do have an equipment related challenge for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to leave you in suspense, and it is a beauty. But we've got to do it on course, and there's a connection to the rules of golf. But I'll leave it as a surprise and a secret. There you go. I'm just going to leave you hanging on that. This week's
big drop there.
Yep. Your Ivor was connecting. No, you need a tech sponsor. Well, you just need. If someone's got a decent computer that they could bung you away, that'd be great. But we need to get that sorted. So this week's golf rules question of the week. Yeah, ready?
Yes, the golf rules question of the week, 34.
I'll read it. Charlotte is playing match play. She holds her putt and thinking that she has won the hole. Let me start that again because I like to get this right. This is my opportunity to practice this little voice over type scenario, which is a fantasy sort of thing. Charlotte is playing match play. She holds her putt and thinking that she has won the hole, lifts her opponent's ball that is on the green. Her opponent then tells her that the putt is for a half. What is the ruling? I love that one. I nearly did that myself.
It happened.
Yeah, okay. Good on you, Charlotte.
On the weekend, Charlotte. Or last week, actually. So what's the ruling?
Okay. Well, there you go. Now, you remember my scenario, which I told you about, and I'll remind you of, where I picked up my ball out of the hole. I halved or won the hole and shook my opponent's hand, and he appropriately reminded me, he said, mate, that's just dormy. We've still got 2 holes to play. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Well, lucky that he didn't say, oh, yeah, sweet, and then walk off, because you could have got him.
Exactly.
You could have gamed him.
Exactly right. Blakey, I must away. I have
other jobs.
I have a job to attend to on this fine Saturday morning. We'll get this out as soon as we can. And thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Go over and check out YouTube, Instagram. If you want to hear Rossco and Rocket, go and tune into the Mile of Golf. I've got a great interview coming up with one of the world's and Australia's great ground superintendent greenkeeping ambassadors based in the States. I've got a great interview coming up there. Check out the Mental Mastery, but check out all the stuff that we're doing. It's all good fun.
That was good. There's so much more that we could talk about with officials, so we'll definitely do a part 2 in the future. Thank you very much, Rossco, for your time, and thank you, listeners, for listening in.
My pleasure. We'll see you next week on the Golf Rules Questions podcast.